Hi everybody, it's Lena here. Welcome to my garden. Today is March 14th, 2022. I am so ready for spring to start. Are you? In this video, I'd like to show you some of the late winter blooms that I've been enjoying for the past few weeks. We're gonna start with this plant next to me here. This is Camellia japonica. It's a variety called Mrs. Tingley. She's been blooming for about 3-4 weeks now. She started to open up her buds right around Valentine's Day, and then she's really such a gorgeous plant. Let's take a closer look at how beautiful she is. Before I go on to show you all of my late winter blooms, let me give you a little bit of background information about where I'm gardening. I live in Zone 8B in the Pacific Northwest region. All the plants in my garden are relatively young because I've been doing this for only about 3 years. I'm going on my 4th year this season. The plants that I'm showing you today are either perennial or evergreen. At the end of this video, I'll include the tags of all the plants that are featured here for your information. In my area, it's pretty safe to grow both Japonica and Sasanqua Camellia species. Camellia Sasanquas bloom earlier than Camellia Japonicas, so to extend the bloom period, I have both. This one in particular that we're looking at is Mrs. Tingley, and it is a Camellia Japonica that blooms from February to March and sometimes well into April. So somewhere between mid to late winter all the way to early spring. Camellia japonicas grow best in partial sun conditions, so say about 3 to 6 hours of sunlight a day. It cannot take full sun. It needs protection from hot afternoon sun, especially when they're young. It requires regular watering, usually when the top 3 inches of soil is dry. For me personally, I usually come out once a week and I water my camellia containers deeply each time. And if that summer is particularly hot, I may come out to water them twice a week, but that's pretty much it. If left to grow in ground, Camellia japonicas could reach up to 8 to 10 feet tall and 6 to 8 feet wide. But because I'm growing all of my camellias in containers, they're probably never gonna get that big. The thing with growing camellias in containers is that you can control their size a little bit better than growing them in ground. And for me, it works best because I like to have my camellias on the patio, so I can look out and I can admire their beauty during winter. I bought this camellia I think about over a year ago, so she's been sitting in this container for about 2 growing seasons. After she's done flowering this season, I'm probably gonna pot her up to a slightly bigger container. If you'd like more information on how I care for my camellias in containers, like what type of soil or what size containers I use and how much I water or how I fertilize, I will include the link to that video in the description box below for you to check it out if you like. Camellias are very rewarding to grow for me personally because they really get me through the gloomy winter that we usually get here in Washington State. In a winter garden where not much else is happening, and especially on days that I'm feeling a little bit of winter blues, I look out my window and I see a camellia shrub blooming its heart out, and they just cheer me right up. Take a look at these beautiful blooms. This perfect formation of the petals that form a double flower in mid-pink shade, she really gives out a profusion of blooms for her size. I am so deep in love with this plant right now. The flowers on this plant, they stay on the stems for as long as like 2 weeks, sometimes even more. And they're pretty big, about 3 inches wide. And I'm sure they make great cut flowers as well. Or if you don't want to cut their stems, you can probably just take a few flowers and just float them in a bowl and use that as a centerpiece on a dining table or something like that. I'm sure they're gonna look really lovely, although I haven't tried because I just like the look of the flowers on these plants, and plus my camellias are not that mature yet. They're still super young, so I try to keep as many flowers on them as possible. Camellias also have very nice glossy green leaves that stay like this all year round. So even in the summer when they're not in bloom, they still look very attractive. So that's my Camellia japonica, Mrs. Tingley, a shrub that looks so lovely from all angles, no matter how you view it. Let's move on to another one of my Camellia japonica that is also still blooming right now, even though this one is not a late blooming variety. This one is called Debutante. It has a super delicate looking bloom, informal double flower form in soft pale pink. It's quite romantic actually. The blooms are usually much bigger than this, but because these are the blooms from the surviving buds that didn't get freeze burned this year, they are a little smaller than expected. So debutante is a variety that actually starts blooming late fall to early winter. So sometime around like late November or December is when she starts to bloom, which she did for me so beautifully this season. She was just getting ready to bloom profusely, producing many swollen buds and some few full-size flowers that started to open up when we got hit with a very cold snap where temperatures dropped below 20s and 30s, and it stayed like that for about 2 weeks. So sadly, I wasn't home during that time to save her. So when I came back from my vacation, all of the flowers that were already blooming before I left, and 70% of all the buds that were like really swollen and were getting ready to bloom, they got freeze burned and started to fall off the plants. Although luckily the freeze didn't kill off the plant, which was, what I cared more about. So I thought, okay, it was done blooming for the season. But then temperatures started to rise a little bit and it got warmer, and all these tiny little buds that weren't fully formed when the freeze hit, they started to grow again. And this is what it looks like right now. Still very pretty. So what would I have done had I been home during the freeze period? First, I would water my containers very deeply to prevent the roots from dry freeze. And because my camellias are now in containers that are not too big, I would probably have moved them inside until frozen temperatures have passed. But I wouldn't recommend keeping your camellias indoors for too long because these plants need natural moisture and cool air, and warm, dry indoor conditions are just not ideal for them. But then again, these are the things that I read and heard from more experienced gardeners. So if you've grown camellias indoors and you've had good success, please feel free to share. All right, so let's take a look at other smaller shrubs. So in this corner here, I wanted to add some color, especially in the winter. This area gets lots of sun in the winter, but it's quite shady in the summer when all of the trees leaf out. So as I was looking for suitable plants to grow in this area, I came across these guys, Ison Roses Lenten Rose, or also called Helleborus Ison Roses. It has a mounding growth habit, about 12 inches tall and 18 inches wide are my guys right now. They may grow slightly bigger and wider than this, but not by much probably. It has really nice looking flowers that are super cold hardy. These survived this year's winter, which was rather harsh in my opinion. On a cold night, the stems droop a little bit and you think, man, maybe that's it for them, like they're done. But as soon as temperatures warm up, they perk right back up and looking all gorgeous again. So they're a little bit of a drama queen depending on temperatures, but they're also a tough cookie at the same time. Next are tiny but bright little blooms of crocus. As of today, March 14th, my crocus are done with their blooms. They started blooming as early as February. Crocus are one of the first bulbs to emerge in the cold. And here we have hyacinth in very deep blue, almost like purple shade. It smells absolutely amazing. And when I planted the winter orchid wallflowers here together in the same bed, I had no idea that they would be in bloom, like in full bloom at the same time. Like I'm talking about the wallflowers and the hyacinth. And I didn't think that the colors of the two plants would set each other off the way they do now. Like deep velvety blue of the hyacinth combined together with coppery orange and orchid purple of the wallflowers. Like they kind of provoke a sense of mystery, like to this whole area. And I really like it. Soon this area will be filled with daffodils and tulips, followed by oriental lilies in the summer and chrysanthemums in the fall. I just can't wait to see what this area will look like. And in the center, I have a big phantom hydrangea paniculata in a tree form. This is like one of my favorite sections to look at. One of the most famous winter blooms in my area are definitely the heaths and the heathers. And right here I have Kramer's red heather, which I just planted last year. So it's still super tiny, but I'm already loving its color. And surrounding it are tulips that are probably going to bloom here soon. This is a low-growing evergreen shrub that can reach the height of 15 inches and width of 24 inches. It's pretty cold hardy. It can take temperatures as low as 0 to like 10 degrees Fahrenheit. It is definitely hardier than my tree form of heath that I have that I'm about to show you after this one here. So this one, I lost it to this year's harsh winter. Right around this time, usually it should be blooming, but not only that it's not blooming, it looks completely dead to me. And the reason I think that it's dead is because this is an evergreen shrub slash tree. So it's not like it's deciduous, like it's gonna come back or anything. I have two of these guys, one in the front and one in the back. And I already got rid of the one in the back and I planted a rose there instead. This is a picture of it back in its, former glory day. And this is the one that I have in the back. Doesn't it look gorgeous when it was in bloom? I'm so sad that I lost them. Anyway, next this is a ground cover called Turan White Saxifraga or Saxifraga. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. This is a ground cover perennial that grows well in partial sun. If you're looking for something that grows good in full sun, you want to look at this guy. This is Little Gem Candy Tuft. Takes full sun and it really brightens up like a dark corner in your garden. This is perfect. This one right here is actually a baby plant that I propagated from the mother plant that I bought 3 years ago. This plant is super easy to propagate. You could do it through softwood cuttings or divisions. The last three plants that I'd like to show you today are not winter blooming shrubs, as in like they don't produce flowers in the winter, although in my opinion their foliage is so colorful and interesting that they deserve to be mentioned. So this is Euphorbia Martini Rudolph Spurge, which is a medium-sized shrub with red tips on top of the stems. During the winter months, they look like little flowers from afar. And here is Silver Dollar Hebe, which I just got a few weeks ago and I planted yesterday. I love the color combinations this plant has. It's super young now, but I can already imagine how beautiful it'll look when full grown. And last but not least, this is Nandina domestica Heavenly Bamboo. It grows like a small tree with different colored leaves ranging from green, copper bronze, maroon to almost like reddish purple. It's great fall winter color. And check out these very bright red berries on this plant. So these are what I have going on in my garden right now as spring is about to approach. Spring will officially arrive on March 20th, which is this Sunday. I hope you enjoyed our little garden tour together today, and soon we'll all be out there and start growing things. Yay! Let's get ready for that. Goodbye everyone. Until next time.